You can hear me.
2 people.
Yeah. Like, need some sunglasses.
One more. Okay, let's start.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go.
Hi everyone. Thanks for coming for the last day. So my name is Tuan Nguyen. I'm from Technical Product Management from Broadcom, VMware.
Yeah. I'm Karl Fultz. I'm from Google Cloud, and we don't have TPMs, but it's pretty much the same role.
Yeah. So today we talk about modern app with security across cloud with VMware vDefend, on-prem, and Google Cloud GKE. So let's start with the situations. That's the abstract. Let's go with the next one. So when the Kubernetes workload, you have Kubernetes workload in your environment today, right? So this is extended from virtual machine and containers, along with bare metal, all of that. We have to solve 4 different problems. So the platform had to be solid, scale, and security is the key thing. So today, and how to manage that, those are day 0, day 1, day 2. Most of the challenge you have is how you onboard container into your system, along with all the workload like virtual machine and bare metal. Also, how you massively scale. That's the big difference between container and virtual machine, which is statically staying. So, okay. So the right scale is a solution we have is everyone you see the last 3 days all based on VCF, right? And then either running on-prem, it's on-prem, we have VCF. So in VCF, you need to solve 4 different problems that the team here we do. There's a lateral security. So all the attacker you have from ransomware protection, the attacker now not going one place to one place, but now the lateral move from A to B to C, and how you correlate all of that. And they can attack from virtual machine, container, bare metal, could be on-prem, could be in the cloud. This is the solution we have for VCF, and it's based on software-defined networking security. And they have a fully distributed architecture, fully distributed on-prem, with all in heavy hypervisor vSphere, right? This is the stack we have. Today we focus on container security. Along with that, we have a solution for gateway firewall to protect the north-south traffic, and the distributed firewall to protect your east-west. So we know product called NSX, and then rebranded in security called a vDefend. So the vDefend, we have 2 stacks based on VCF, one for security baseline, protecting security for container, for gateway firewall, for distributed firewall. Those are the solution at the base. And then on top, we have all of the malware preventions, ransomware protections. The solution is the blue part. So either you buy for the green part with all of the baseline, or the blue and green together. So this advanced threat prevention that includes all the protection at the green and blue as well. So this is the solution running on-prem, and Karl going to talk about more solution in the cloud as well. So that zoom in that you see that all the VMware solution today we talk based on VCF on-prem workload. And then in the cloud, we have all the cloud providers, they have their own solution. And now we focus today on the distributed firewall, which is the firewall fully distributed across different hosts in the vSphere host. Now, not only the bare metal virtual machine, now we support container. This is the first last season. We saw a lot of presentation about Tanzu. So this solution can go beyond Tanzu, and now we run in the cloud as well. So let's talk about the zooming that what we have here. So a lot, so this is the whole containers landscape, right? Most people use it to do a micro-segmentation to segment the network. So when you have attacks, the attack on an isolated, not go somewhere else. So the thing we do today, either on-prem in the cloud, same problem. All the problem we solve in here, and port-to-port communications, isolation and namespace, all of that, FQD and filtering. But today, the most important is the network policy. How you create a network policy in an easy way. It's easy to do a VM or bare metal because you know which VM, which IP. Container doesn't work with IP. They work with the names, right? And then they have to protect it. That is network policy coming. You want to talk something about that?
Yeah, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. When we start to look at Antrea with what we support at Google, network policy is the extent of it today with Antrea. And I'll explain why when we get a few slides in, but the rest of the capabilities that Tuan's talking about aren't an area that we're focused on today from an Antrea perspective. Obviously, we have our own methods of handling
That's
it.
not necessarily on Antrea. This is in general container security.
Sure.
But
Yeah,
either you run in any cloud provider or on-prem, something. You have to solve all the problems here. So network policy is always the first one. Why? Why is it even more important? The container, not a container. You want to front end talk with app talk with DB. You don't want the front end go to database and attack this. Attacker in VM is much easier to identify because they're based on IP. Container up and go, that's difficult. So that they can create a virtual firewall. The virtual firewall in the IBM's virtual machine, that's a VNIC. So virtual firewall, virtual V firewall. This is for container, same concept. Now you can extend the footprint all the way to container, either run on-prem or in the cloud, same concept. That's it on-prem, right? And then they can extend the policy, go to the cloud. That's also we talk about it with the GKE solution. Now, the 4 different use cases, they zoom in the same picture we showed. 4 you get the network policies. So problem statement, this is the first one, VM to container. You have some virtual machine workload, right? And you have some virtual machine workload, you have container workload. Let's say I have the front end, all of the webs here, they've been years and years. Now I can convert to containerize. But the back end running a database, that's a good example of customer we have. It cannot containerize it, so it's still running a virtual machine. Now, how can I create policy, not only virtual machine, container. Now the policy between VM and container, that's the first use case. On the left, you see the VM running on VCF on-prem, and the container can run on GKE. Now we can create policies. How you can create it? You can have CNI running between the two. So the CNI, this container network interface, allow you to have all the connectivities. Based on that, you can apply the policy. You can allow a block traffic between those guys. It's so powerful in this concept. When they are common, this is common. It doesn't matter which environment running. And they have provided central policy management, easy of use, easy of scale. That's the idea, right? And then you can grouping. The VM can move, container can also move. VM is hard to move from on-prem to cloud, but container can move. When you move it, the policy needs to follow that. That's whole concept is about. And the use case 2 is very typical containerized isolation. When a container, you have a thing called namespace, right? Namespace is the logical construct inside the workload of Kubernetes. And you can isolate it. Namespace A can talk with namespace B, but B cannot with C. And we can create the policy, allow you to do that. Now A and B can be running on-prem with VCF, and C can run on GKE. And then you apply the policies. That's one use case, right? Another use case we have, and the bare metal. So why we bare metal? You know what? Bare metal is for performance. Some performance, we need to have a bare metal, have a better performance. So we can do a smart NIC, you can do any technology, DPDK, and all of that to fine tuning, get the traffic go out much faster and much high scale. Container can run on top of that as well. The solution we have with Antrea is a solution from VMware that using the OVS, Open vSwitch, in the past. So it allows you to have the tuning on top of bare metal. So basically we inject into the Linux namespace where the container can run, and then we can apply policy across. And underneath that's the bare metal. So the slide before this is on VM. That's it. Those are physical servers. And you don't have vSphere in this case. You don't have, it can run anywhere. And I have a last use case where they provide the cool thing, but virtual machine cannot do and do so well is the API. So Google is so good at that, right? API can be east-west with the ingress gateway, or north-south, or is traffic from east-west and north-south. Because everything is driven by API. That's the cool thing about container. You make a call to the name, and then I make a request for you. So I can call front end, make a request. You don't need to specify any IP. That's the beauty of a container at very large scale, and the beauty of that, either VMware or Google can do much, much higher than all the solutions on the market. I think maybe that's the last slide I have. And now put them together. Now you have some workload on-prem. This is one of the use case with demo, right? Some workload on-prem running a container, put Antrea, put controller in here, and also in the cloud. So Google can support multiple CNI. In this case, we use Antrea. And now we have the policy on top. When I have the policy management, And then we can put the load balancing. Does container go along with load balancing? The core base container is load balancing services, either east, west, or north, south. You can put, in this case, we have a solution called RV load balancer. You come by the booth, come by the hands-on lab. There's some labs. We can see how you hands-on that. Everything is shown here. You can go and practice. You have today and tomorrow. The booth's gonna close today. So, but tomorrow you can still have the full day do certification and the hands-on lab. Everything here you can see that. So we have some workload running on both sides. And the last slide, and then you push the policies. That's the whole idea. Now you have workload running in different locations, different either on-prem, on-prem cloud, cloud to cloud, push the policy. That's the beauty of that. And then in this case you have container, and then put the sidecar here. You can have a service mesh on top, and you apply policy on top of that as well. You can have API security on top. That's it, and I give it to you.
Okay. And it's interesting, Broadcom's on Google Workspace, but we still couldn't share slides between the two companies. So I apologize, we got to switch here. Just take me a sec. So what I thought I'd do...
Correct. You go to a hands-on lab, practice that. This is VMware not about virtual machine. VMware go much beyond that, and we support hyperscaler. That's why I see a lot of partners. So Google is part of that as well.
So thanks, Tuan. So I thought I just wanted to make sure not everybody's familiar with GKE, or quick show of hands. Have you worked with GKE or okay? So I thought I'd just a couple of slides just on what GKE is and what it means to us, and all the stuff that Tuan just talked about in terms of policy and laying that down, and that all applies here. So I won't be sort of redundant and explain all that again. The one thing that I'll say as we get into this is the use case in which we allow Antrea from a networking standpoint is relatively narrow. And I'll explain that in a second once we get sort of through all the GKE stuff. Are you going to do that for me? Oh, nice, thanks. Actually, go back one slide. So I think the advantage of GKE and really the focus, so it's our Kubernetes engine product. We actually got a couple of different capabilities. So you have Kubernetes engine, you also have Cloud Run. Today we'll talk about Kubernetes engine. So what it really is focused on is if you've got developers, you got folks working with containers, and they just want to have a sort of as a service container capability, stand it up really easily. You know, there's a couple of different options if you want to, here, I got it. If we want to look at what the two different modes are. So autopilot mode's relatively new. What that allows you to do, let's say I'm like a developer persona. I'm not into the infrastructure piece of it. I want to stand this up, and I want to do it kind of with typical best practices for Kubernetes. That's what autopilot mode's going to give you. A lot of customers are looking at it and using that for, let's say, I have some like transitory workloads, or I have some bursty workloads, and I want to scale to 0. Autopilot's great for that. Everything that you can do on autopilot, you can also do in standard mode. That was sort of our original offering. That's what we would typically put in front of folks that have been working with Kubernetes for years. They want to go in there and really peek under the hood, do all sorts of in-depth configurations that are, you know, specific to whatever they're doing. That's where standard mode comes in. The Antrea integration, where we work with it, well, we're allowing folks to come in and use the container nodes. I don't know if that applies to anything that you guys are doing, but obviously there are a lot of customers out there that are heavily on the Microsoft side, and they're doing a lot of .NET development. That's where this comes in. And the reason is our typical CNI that we use is something called Cilium, and it doesn't work on the Windows side. It's a Linux product, or it's a Linux capability as well, how I'd characterize it. So we had to look for a solution to support Windows workloads, and so that's where that comes in. So basically, we're working with the LTSC images. That's it. So both server and I think also the Nano platform, if I remember. So if you want to advance it one more. Oh, one thing that I would say, there is one question that often comes up is how do we handle licensing for this from a Microsoft perspective? It's sort of nuancy. After 2019, there's some complexity around licensing. My suggestion is talk to Microsoft if this applies at all. Bring your own license. After that becomes pretty complicated. If that's not the case for you, then you have a lot of flexibility. In that before that October 2019 timeframe. Okay, so as we look at a standard control plane, we can have these both running within the same environment. Obviously, it's got to be a different cluster because we're using a different CNI here for network policy. And that's essentially what we're going to do. We pull Cilium out of the mix. We add the Antrea plugin, and it effectively becomes the networking portion of our control plane for anything involving Windows. And all the stuff that Tuan talked about applies there. And that's that's sort of how we address that today from a Kubernetes perspective. There's also an on-prem product that we offer. It's called Distributed Cloud. The Distributed Cloud product, it runs entirely on Linux, so that unfortunately Antrea is not going to be available there, especially with Broadcom focus back on-prem. As of today, we aren't planning. There may be some options out there in the future where we embrace Windows workloads on-prem, where this would come into play with Antrea. So that's kind of at a high level what we're doing from an Antrea perspective, and where we are today. I suspect we will probably look at some of the other networking options that Antrea provides beyond Windows, beyond what we're doing with Windows today. But I think it's probably about a year out before we see that. So it's kind of short and sweet. That's where we are from a Google perspective. I don't know if you guys have any questions. Yeah. Okay. Tuan, you got anything?
Yeah, I have a quick demo.
Okay. Oh, that's right. You do have a demo.
So we run a quick demo, and then feel free to come by the hands-on lab. So it's search for Antrea or containers. And can we show the demo? Yeah. Okay. So the thing here, we have the whole concept of defend in depth. So you have a defend in depth. You have to protect from traffic from outside, all the way to the inside box inside your data center, either on-prem and the cloud. So the first is perimeter firewall. It doesn't matter on-prem or Google Cloud or clouds. You have to have that first front-end layer of defense in depth. And after that, you have a second layer, which is inside the data centers. So in here, we have distributed firewall, and we have all the things. And in here, exactly the zoom in here. So you have the whole, so maybe I'll stop it here so quick. So before we go to the demo, that's the whole here. So let me go back in here. So you have some workload running as a container in a TKG, Tanzu, in vSphere, or virtual machine, or other type of workload, then running a different workload. So how we protect that to make sure there are no compromise and ransomware and other attack coming. So the solution we have is called VMware vDefend, or running on-prem. And then we have to protect the whole end-to-end, they call lateral security between virtual machine, container, all the places. And the demo is going to show and create the workloads, and the container become the first-class citizen inside vSphere. And then the onboarding container is one click. And then from that, it onboard into NSX with the VMware vDefend. We can apply the policies, and we can tag into containers. And then where containers moving, so then we can see the policy being applied. And not only apply on a virtual machine and container, but you can mix and match all of that inside NSX. This is a solution we have. So this is just one similar YAML file. We apply the YAML, and the container show up in TKG. And then you go back in NSX here, you see container shows up inside NSX. So next to virtual machine. So those are container cluster. Now onboard inside the networking security concept. From there, you apply the policy. You can apply this is front end, this is back end, this is your database. All of that, you can apply the grouping between the dev environment or production, and then apply policies. That's simple as that. And then can expand to the cloud as well, if you have CNI running in the cloud. In this case, you create a group called a cluster namespace, and they set the member. Now, in only virtual machine IP, now you can select which namespace and which characters. Could be front end, in this case, which one we use it, and then you take the tagging. That's the same thing we have in NSX for years and years, and then apply to the container. Now we create a policy. I want to isolate the use case number 2, I show it, how isolate the workload for container, not to talk with another container, or this part cannot with another services. And that's one click. So everything UI driven. Behind the scene, you can send it by API. For the demo purpose, you use the API UI, but you can send an API. Everything is API driven. And then we can allow a drop traffic. See those traffic between those two guys here, I block it. And I go here, I can trace the flow between the two containers and see who blocked the traffic and which rule allow, which will not allow. Here you can create a tagging here, it's copying here, it set a member here, and then we put a member or it set a virtual machine, and I can put one virtual machine to container. Here in this scenario number 2, we mix and match between virtual machine and one source, destination is container. We can apply policies. I think that's pretty cool, right? And all of that all in one place. And then you can apply policy, zero trust, ransomware protection. You don't want to be zero trust and you don't care about container. You have to care about all the workload you're running, not all your virtual machine. That's the whole idea about the demo. Question? Go and play with the booth and go in the hands-on lab. Everything we show here at the hands-on lab, you see it's something. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, guys.